Hello, welcome back to the podcast version of Convergence 2012, written by Robert R. Ricks and read by the author. The story contains mature content, harsh language. There may be some content which may offend some listeners. If you are easily offended, please stop listening now. Make sure you check out the website at www.convergence2012.com and facebook.com/convergence2012. Thank you for checking us out. I hope you enjoyed the story. This episode is brought to you by Zydeco Online, uniting the Zydeco Nation. You can check out the best in Zydeco music at www.zydecoonline.com. Now on with the story. Chapter 4, Preparation. December 12, 2011, San Francisco, 4:30 a.m. Kuthanaga was pleased with the way the Watcher Azrael was able to assist him with Tim and Joy. He had been in contact with all the Watchers save one, the Watcher Zanari, who had arrived a short time before he had shifted. Kuthanaga was sitting in a large leather chair and was gazing out the window watching the Bay Area slowly wake up from its troubled sleep. Many were getting up early in anticipation of long commutes to jobs they desperately needed to keep, but despised to the deepest center of their core. The economic situation in America had gone from bad to worse to desperate as it slid into a second depression. With Dow Jones barely scraping above 3,500 and unemployment at an all-time high of 37%, it was no wonder there were Tims running around the streets. With California bankrupt, several vital agencies were operating with no money, one being the local police departments. They were stretched beyond their means, and the city streets were a scary place to be in the wee hours. Within this chaos, the time was ripe for the test to be implemented. He was in a condo at 1 Rincon Hill. He had gorgeous views of the city and had managed to snatch this particular unit for a steal of a price at only $950,000. It was all for appearances. The humans were interesting in that they were driven by very primal urges and yet strive for a higher level of morality, all the while having two sides, an inner side which they shared with very few, and an outer face that they wore for a variety of reasons. They could be the most charitable and caring person one day, and modify a few variables, and there was no limit to the atrocities they could commit. He paused and shook his head. It was a shame, really, because the argument could be made it wasn't purely the humans' fault for their defects. After all, they were genetically manipulated early in their evolution. He wondered how the humans would have turned out if they weren't tampered with so early on. It was a moot point, as what was done and nothing could change the past. The humans, for all their quirks and faults, were distant relatives which needed to be preserved. It was the correct thing to do. Pondering human history, he wondered why they never deduced the simple truth. They were genetically engineered. They were bred for a purpose, and they surpassed the original plan and emancipated themselves. With the genetic manipulation they were doing now, he wondered how long it would have been before they could have proved it. The human science was still in infancy, yet they were playing with dangerous forces for mostly the wrong reasons. The man-made H1N1 virus would prove to be their largest mistake as a species. The natural flu virus was the creation of the Anakai, meant to keep tabs on the humans in their evolution and watch for further genetic tamperings at the hands of the Draconians. The influence of the Draconians, it would seem, was intense, and they looked forward to the Convergence to settle old scores with the outer planers. When the humans introduced H1N1, it interfered with the data that was being collected and reported back to the Anakai. With flawed data, the Anakai would have to come to the crust and mark the chosen by hand instead of relying on the virus. The Draconian bloodline was strong on the crust, and they had done very well for themselves, amassing large armies ready to die at their orders. He knew when the time came they would be a force to reckon with, and he was well aware of their intentions. The Draconians were a minor threat to Kuthanaga, as another enemy was more dangerous than even the Draconians, an ancient foe that was more than capable of destroying a complete system if they knew the Draconians, the Anukai, and the Kunuks were hiding out there. Kuthanaga wondered if the Draconians even remembered their common enemy. With the galactic alignment, there was no longer anything to shield them from long-term scans, and that fact alone scared Kuthanaga. His thoughts were interrupted when he felt a slight tingling at the base of his skull. The sensation was similar to a foot waking up, minor pins and needles that was focused to a specific location. Telepathic pushing and receiving took time to master and get used to. He relaxed and the sensation was familiar. It was Zanari. "Hello, Zanari. I was wondering when I would hear from you. How are you faring for your first time?" An image of Zanari faded into Kuthanaga's mind. He closed his eyes and focused on her. "These humans are interesting. It will take a little time to adjust to the sights and smells." Kuthanaga smiled. "Yes, the smell. Sorry, did I fail to mention that when we were discussing the crust?" She nodded. Yes, you did. But I am now used to it. Now, if I can get used to human shoes. He examined her. I see you've assumed a disguise. You'll modify it again. You'll still stand out. When you're among them, you'll notice subtle things and will adjust. I would again like to thank you and know you sacrificed much to be here. She looked down and then after a moment looked up, stared deep into his eyes. Yes, as have we all. I believe in this cause, even though my father may not. It is the right thing to do. Kuthanaga nodded. It is. We are responsible in part for the humans, and we must do what we can. You know what you are looking for, yes? She nodded, and almost said something and paused. You wish to ask a question? A pause. I gave my word to a pharaoh that I would recheck a human when the time came. Did I speak out of line? Kuthanaga shook his head. No. You may make judgments like that. The humans we mark and protect are best guesses. The arbitrators will have the final say. We simply do the best we can. Kuthanaga could sense some turmoil in the young watcher. What is it, child? I wonder if it's best to leave the questionable ones. I fear being an outcast would be crueler fate for the humans we bring back that aren't accepted. He nodded. There were outcasts among the Anukai, and they rarely were heard from again. Still, it is not our concern. We do what we can, and that is all we can do. Does this satisfy your questions? She nodded, and a faint smile materialized on her face. Thank you. I'll check in soon. Zanari. Yes, Kuthanaga. You can also reach out just to talk, you know. This is a strange place for you, and you will bear witness to many dark things. Never forget I am here for you. I am capable of cleansing you if you start to feel tainted. She nodded. I will. The invitation is also extended to you as well. And while I am unable to perform cleansing, I am capable of other techniques. She silently hoped for a reaction, and all she received was a slight smile. Noted. Good luck, young one. And then she was gone. Kuthanaga leaned back in his chair and stretched. The Anukai had no need for sleep, which presented him with lots of time to think. He closed his eyes and began to meditate on what he needed to accomplish. He had a short amount of time, and his major fear was alerting the Draconians that they were among them, although there was one particular one he wanted to find. If the Draconians knew, he was unsure of the success of the mission, but it was never assured of success in the first place.